Flavor Talk with the BBQ World Shop Factory team. The music's running loud tonight, and I'm your co-host, Brian Neal, aka Mr. Freak of Smoke Freaks Barbecue.
And I am Ann Neal, Ms. Freak, and together we are the tongues and testers behind the flavor guide at BBQ Pro Shop, the world's first seasonings, decoder, and buying guide. And joining us is our partner in flavor going all the way back to 2019, Jeff Belmonte, owner of BBQ Pro Shop. Hey, Jeff, what's up?
Not much. How been doing, everybody?
Awesome.
I'm doing good.
We are so excited for tonight's Flavor Talk, where we welcome a true barbecue legend, Chris Marks, 9-time BBQ World Champion and the mastermind behind Three Little Pigs barbecue products.
So, thank you for the kind introduction.
Yeah, well, Chris, you've been building and sustaining a barbecue business for over 2 decades now. And we're going to get into how you've kept it going strong through changing markets, changing times, rising costs, and shifting tastes. So welcome to Flavor Talk. We're so glad to have you here.
Thank you so much.
And thanks to everyone joining in live tonight and joining in after the fact through the magic of internet streaming. So we're going to break this discussion down into 3 sections. So we'll start, as we always do, by getting to know Chris a little bit and his barbecue story. And then the meat of our discussion, so to speak, is going to be about the business of barbecue. And then finally, this being Flavor Talk, we're going to drill down into the Three Little Pigs lineup, hopefully shig a little bit, find out what Chris is suggesting for nice flavor mashups and how you can apply those flavors he makes at home to make some incredible stuff. Sound good to you guys?
Sounds real good.
All right. Well, Chris, let's jump in with the basics. I'd love to hear about your barbecue origin story. Let's start with what were you before you became a barbecue guy, and then what led you into this big, crazy barbecue family?
Surprise, surprise, I was an IT guy. I was did a lot of security work, and back then it was a lot of mainframe, a lot of Unix work. I was very blessed to be able to come out of school back in the early 80s and get a job. I interviewed up against 66 people, and I was the one to get the job. And it was a field service for a big computer company. And I loved it to death. I was in sales. I was in engineering. I was in maintenance. I was in it all. And it was an absolute blast. And I thrived in the business. I did extremely well in the business.
So what kind of computer do you run now? I'm just kidding.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I love the business. I was a computer guy. And of course, with the computer guy comes, in the sales type guy, I was able to really pull it all together. I worked for a great company, had an unbelievable marketing company. So I learned a lot from them. I learned a lot how to think out of the box, how to, look at a competitor, never degrade a competitor. But again, look at a competitor and see what they're doing better. And you make it better. So again, I work for a very, very great company when it came to really business strategies and tactics.
And man, talk about things that change fast. I mean, IT in general, but IT security especially. Talk about.
And I was in the bud.
Things
I was
that go fast.
Very, very start of it. I was in the very start of it. So I have my Cisco certifications. I have IBM certifications. I was actually Novell certified, which is now Linux, and I was actually Microsoft certified. So I still have all my certifications, and but that's what I did. I was that guy, that designer. Somebody comes in and says, "I need this, need this. How do we do it?" Mm-hmm. And that's what I did. I was sales technical.
Right around that same time, early 80s, I was still in high school, but I had a little bit of an IT job as well. I was kind of a computer nerd. My mom was a media specialist and was able to bring home one of the first, publicly available computers, a TRS-80 that she brought home from the library over the summer. Probably cost about $1,000. Trash 80s. That's what I called it too. Especially when she
64s.
Yep. I especially called it a Trash 80 the next year when she brought home the Apple II. That really started to change my life. early on, really, it changed the trajectory of my life. But I was hired at age 14 by my school district to crack software. So they'd buy one copy of like Oregon Trail or
Oh,
whatever,
I
and I'd
remember
sit
Oregon
in an
Trail.
office and crack software. And then once I was successfully able to copy the disk, then I had to copy the documentation on the copy machine, which
Yeah, we
took
learned-
way, way longer.
Yeah, we learned that format star.star and copy star.star, and knew that well.
Indeed. Yeah, my best trick was take the
OG
cover
hacker.
off the disk drive and put your thumb on it while it's trying to boot and beat the
Yeah.
copy protection. But yeah, those were the days, man, back then. And it's crazy to look back on it now. And in some ways, I feel like, there's some parallels to barbecue when you look at where was barbecue in the early 80s compared to
Absolutely.
where and what is barbecue now and how much it's changed. But why don't you jump in and tell us, how did you go from IT guy to barbecue badass? What happened there?
No, well, basically what happened was my dad said, you're going to cook on the team because this is really hard. And I prefer you do the cooking and I'm going to go out and do the talking. So that's sort of how it started. He was a senior exec at Hallmark Cards and he retired, and he just got into doing barbecue. He had a local barbecue contest in Raytown and he entered and he won a ribbon and he was hooked. And it just sort of started from there.
So I'm hearing these names, Raytown, Hallmark. I'm thinking Kansas City. That must be where you're from, yeah?
Oh, you know it. Yeah. Oh, KC, born and bred, barbecue in my blood.
They make some good barbecue there. What are some of your favorite, like old school barbecue spots back from the day?
Old school barbecue spots. I always go back to Gates.
Me too. I love Gates. I love
everybody, and everybody says, well, I'm not a big
100%.
I don't like the big thick cut brisket. I like Gates thin cut brisket on the sandwiches, with turkey doubles and double and a half and crispy fries. And, hey.
May I help you?
How may I help you?
May I help you?
I may help you.
And my wife jams me in front. The ribs,
Yes.
you go in and order ribs. They're a nice dry rib. And then they say, you want a short end or a long end. People are just like, what's a short end? What's a long end? Come on, guys. This is barbecue.
Get with it. Go to Rib Tech and you'll know.
Yeah, exactly. And so I like Gates. I like Q39. It's just quality, very quality.
Yeah, that's more competition oriented.
More competition oriented. Old school would be, LC's. He's an old school guy too. And
LC's can be either the best of the day or they can miss sometimes.
Yeah, my
Depends
dad
on
was
who's working that pit.
My mom wouldn't go into LC's. You probably know why.
We lived close. We were not too far away from there, South Kansas City. So back
The
at the
old
time,
Snide
it was
bar.
called Smokestack out in Martin City. That was where
Smokestack's
I
excellent.
barbecue teat.
I like
Next
Smokestack too.
Yep.
I never, like I say, I never talk bad about anybody or anybody's barbecue because, again, they put a lot of heart into it, and I'm never going to be that person
I hear
do
you.
that. My parents have always taught me to be humble and kind, and I always will be.
So, Chris, from the your dad with the team, and it sounds like you kind of got voluntold you're going to be cooking.
Voluntold, that's exactly it.
You got voluntold, and wow. So everyone listening, this is a fantastic opportunity. Sometimes in life, you do get voluntold, and look what that might lead to. I mean, look what Chris has accomplished now after being voluntold all those years ago.
And
so,
I was 27. I was 27 when he voluntold me.
Did you already know how to cook barbecue, or was that something you had to figure out?
I had to cook barbecue. I could barely cook for myself. Yes, actually, I had to figure it out. Now, one thing we did do, my dad was friends with Paul Kurt and Guy Simpson. If you've heard those names.
I don't know those names.
Those are the original KCBS people.
Okay.
So Paul Kurt, Guy Simpson, Carolyn, Gary Wells, Craig and Patty Kidwell, my mom and dad were some of the original KCBS people. And Paul Kurt, it was a chef. And he was the one who really sort of taught my dad, who in turn taught me.
Very cool. So what inspired you to eventually turn from a hobby into a business with this whole barbecue thing?
Oh, well, yeah, that's another point, a good point too. So, I was doing IT, and a guy came up to me and he said, "Hey, do you want to come work for me as a contractor? Because I just bought a smoker company." He bought the Goodwin brand. He was sort of an angel investor, knowing the Goodwin brand was dying. So he bought this Goodwin brand, and he had one of the Goodwin's friends become his general manager. But he didn't have any ability on how to sell a smoker or even what a smoker was. That was this guy. So lo and behold, I worked for him for about a year as contractor, but I also did a lot of his marketing stuff. So about a year later, he goes, "Hey, I just want you to run it." He goes, and he made me a very good, he knew I was an IT guy, and he pretty much had a good idea what I made, and he basically matched it. And it was a start from there. So I started selling smokers with Goodwin, and that lasted with them for about 7 years. And we did extremely well. At one time, we're about to 120 dealers.
Wow.
At the same time, we had already made the sauces back in the late 1998. And my dad had passed away after we had won the Royal. Before we won the Royal for the first time, the Invitational, he passed away a month before. So the barbecue thing was my mom and dad's and friends' deal, but he had passed away right before we won our first world championship. And then after that, we just went almost all the way to 2004, winning whether it be a grand in the Open or Invitational or reserve in the Invitational.
Yeah, it just kind of became a legacy all of a sudden for you guys.
And it was just, and it was me and my mom and my uncle. His brother had replaced my dad. And
so you were helping the Goodwin get kind of reinvigorated.
And at the same time, the owner said, "Well, we just need some other things to sell." So we did charcoal. We got charcoal, of course.
Yep.
And then he goes, "Well, I want to sell your sauces." Okay. And he goes, "What about your rubs?" And I said, "Well, I got them all. I just haven't put them into production yet." And he says, "Well, I want to sell those too." So around 2002, that's when the rubs came into play. Rubs and seasonings.
Were you already operating as your own business at that point, or were you still, working with the Goodwin?
I was still working with the Goodwin.
Gotcha.
But that, because I had 3 Little Pigs as an LLC, that was mine.
Yeah.
Gotcha. So you were able to just kind of ramp and start scaling that up on your own.
And I'm very fortunate enough in town. I have Old World Spices and David Maples, who helped me get all the rubs and started. And so I was very fortunate to have that.
Yeah, the network is key, and really anything in life, you want to go out and learn to do something new. Having a network can really make a huge difference in whether you're going to make it or not. Otherwise, you got to learn everything on your own. But having people who can steer you in the right direction and get you some shortcuts seems to be one of the things that differentiates, people who make it and people who don't, is how good is your network and how are you able to leverage it?
Absolutely. So from there, we developed the rubs and sauces from there, and it was part of the package for the Goodwin. And at the time, we're dealing specifically with specialty, but at the same time, he came from a grocery background. So we developed a grocery brand, what we call the All Natural brand, which was completely different from the other brands. So we could basically separate the 2 markets. So we had our specialty market, and then we had our grocery market. And so he had a whole other crew that worked the grocery market, whereas we worked the specialty. And so I know a lot about grocery. Yeah. And there's a reason I'm not in it. So.
And that's maybe a good segue to kind of the main focus of our conversation, the business of barbecue. And I think, Chris, when we spoke to you, before tonight, you kind of expressed it in that way, and I thought that made a lot of sense, and it's very relevant, to these times. And I'm just curious, kind of right off the bat, what would you say? You've been at this 20 plus years or so.
About 35 total now.
Thank you, 35 total or so now. Yeah. So that in that time frame, what if you can, you know, you've seen change. Has there been a thing that's changed the most in that time frame within the barbecue industry?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. It's come down to marketing. Whereas you think back in the early 2000s, how did you market? How did you market it? What we did is we had to market it through brochures, through classes. I mean, social media was in its infancy back then.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it was MySpace or something similar to that. I mean, that's all we had to work with back then was that. And maybe we can make some videos. YouTube wasn't even around.
Right.
So, and we'd copy them over to DVDs and send them out. Then you find out you send them out DVDs. They don't have a DVD player. I mean, so that's sort of what we're dealing with back then. So now what we've done is we basically have a whole other marketing realm with social media on how the little guys, whether we don't use TV media, we don't use a lot of radio, how can we market? We can market now over social media, Facebook, Instagram. I mean, places like that. So that's what I've seen as the big transition is us little guys who really never could play against the famous Daves and all these other guys had a huge advertising market. You know, we could never play against those guys. Now we're able to get online and have people follow us. So again, that's what I've seen in the market change too. The other thing I've seen in the market change is people are educated now because again of social media. They're able to get out there and see the guys who have really won. You know, everybody puts on their product. I'm world champion. I'm a winner of all this. But the problem is you can never quantify that back then. Now you can quantify it. And people go out and look. And if you say you won this, you know, they're going to look. And it better be true what you put on that label or what your poster saying. You better be able to do it because people will call you out on it now.
Yeah, for sure.
And
so
what helped you make the decision to kind of start marketing direct as opposed to creating your own website, you know, and really, because that's something that you and I spoke about a lot is you really put the emphasis on the sellers and the retailers. And it seems to be something that I think today, that's a big thing that I've seen change is this idea that everybody can go online and create their own website and start competing directly and all that kind of stuff. So what made that decision?
And that's another good point coming from your aspect of it. So I have a website and it's more of an information website. I don't sell online. I don't compete directly with any of my retailers. I don't want to do that. I'm not good at shipping boxes around. I'm good at being in front of people and training people. And I don't want that retailer to basically compete against me. Because a lot of times when I'll go in, I'll listen to these retailers, you know, all over the world, I listen to these retailers. And one of their biggest complaints is that I had a guy come in here for class and he basically handed out his cards and told them to go buy it online with him. Very common. And that's why, again, you don't see a lot of these guys going back to these shops doing classes because there's no return to the retailer.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, indeed. I mean, and I've been out on my own in business now for about 10 years. And one of the things I've learned is you're only going to be as successful as the friends you have. You got to make friends, keep them. And it kind of works out. If I scratch your back, you scratch mine. And along the way, you're going to find some people who don't like to scratch. And that's fine. You just move on and find people who can help you build and you can help them. And to me, symbiosis has always just been a big deal. You know, I can't do
it's our age. It is our age. I'm telling you right now.
Say more about that.
Because I think I see, let's go more into the millennials. They don't think like that. It's like, get out of my way. It's like, you know, I'm going to do it my way and I don't care what you think. You know, and that's, again, it's sort of our age, you know, we're the, you know, the baby boomers, you know,
I'm Gen X, just saying.
Gen X.
Yeah, well, close.
But I hear you.
I'm a barely baby.
Bunch of
Yeah,
kids.
you barely.
So it's just sort of a different attitude now that I see in the market. And I'm going to stay the way I stay. I'm not going to change. It's just interesting to watch new guys into the market running around to all these different events and taking pictures with people and, look who I'm with, look, this is me, and, that just drives me insane because they're trying to, what we call it, the old company, they used to call it coattail marketing. I'm going to find somebody who's really popular and I'm going to hang my brand on them. And I see a lot of that in the market now.
So let's talk about, brands. I think, you made a statement, about being independent as a brand and pursuing your own course and, you getting to that place in this barbecue journey that you've had, lending from that background that you spoke about. I know in one of our earlier conversations, you talked a lot about strategy and applying strategic thinking from a business environment from your former life to this now barbecue life. And I'm wondering if you can kind of define that and talk a little bit about when you talk about being strategic, like, what do you mean by that?
Well, strategic is an ever moving pendulum, by the way. So when you look at our markets, there's all kinds of things that go on in the barbecue market. And, a barbecue market in general, we have to look first of all our growth. What's that market going to grow? There's information out there to tell you how much it's going to grow up into the 2030s. And so you have to really understand what strategy you want based on, we call it FDM, food, drug, mass, grocery, based on hardware, Ace, Lowe's, okay, that group, then based on specialty. Every strategy is different between all the different channels. So again, you have to figure out your strategy. What does that strategy come down to? It comes down to marketing, comes down to pricing. It comes down to all kinds of different ways you want to handle that channel because they're all different. And so what channels do you want to play in? When you're starting a brand, especially a barbecue brand, where do you want to go? Do you want to sell truckloads and make pennies? Do you want to work in the hardware channel? Or do you want to work in the specialty channel, which is a pretty tough channel?
So let's differentiate these three channels a little bit. So I'm guessing, the grocery and selling by the truckloads, that's like Sweet Baby Ray's sauce, something like that.
Absolutely.
And Ace Hardware and the hardware markets, I've been really impressed and thrilled
they've
over the
done
last
a
15
fantastic
years.
job in the last really 5 to 7 years. They've really embraced the hobby.
Okay. And what does specialty mean?
Specialty is going to be like a barbecue store, backyard barbecue,
Gotcha.
a store like that, just a barbecue specialty store. And we saw a lot of them pop up during COVID.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think from just a retail availability standpoint, other than Amazon, the availability of the stuff I like at hardware stores and just discovering new stuff has been the biggest change since I've been involved in barbecue. And I'm guessing you can give us some insights on how did that come to be? What happened to make hardware stores a lot of them have killer barbecue sections.
Wait one second here.
Yeah.
Some spam, of course.
Technology.
So fortunately, Ace, Westlake Ace was here in Kansas City. And I've worked with Westlake Ace for about 15 to 16 years in the barbecue channel. And they're another big Ace conglomeration. There's a Westlake, there's Great Lakes, there's all kinds of these big stores, and they'll have 120 some stores under their umbrella. But what it is Ace started working more with Westlake. They saw these beautiful hardware, beautiful barbecue stores that they had set up. And what happened is Ace says, man, there's a niche out there to fill. I mean, they say we have a lot of these kind of guys that come in that are going to be barbecue guys. So that's what they've done. They saw a opening and they took it. And they took it early. And first one in usually wins. And I was just down at the Ace show, and there's a couple of these Ace stores that talk, and they've had like 40% growth year to year, like 3 years in a row. They started out with just a regular, 2-foot section of barbecue. And one guy was telling me he has 24 foot now of rubs and sauces.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. We have a couple of Aces by us that are by far the best barbecue sections around, out here in Northwest Indiana. For whatever, I'm not surprised to hear you say that they were kind of first movers in the hardware category to get on board. Now, since then, I've seen, I don't know much about the hardware business to know how affiliations and all those connections work, but now I see more and more, just any hardware store you pick, they're going to have a barbecue section now. They're going to have at least 10 different types of cookers available, and enough stuff on the shelf that I can make something killer no matter what I'm cooking. If I'm out of something, I can go to Ace or the hardware store and get what I need.
And absolutely. And again, they saw that opening and they took it, and great move for them. So the A show, when you're listening to these guys come back and talk about their successes, and then you talk to somebody else from another show, says, well, we can't get anybody to buy barbecue. And I mean, that basically comes back to them, because again, when you're talking 30 and 40% growth year over year, and they're just continuing to move forward. I mean, they're just continuing to basically fine tune it and make it better.
Yeah. Getting your brand into an Ace Hardware or a large retailer like that takes a lot of grassroots effort to get to that level. The people that are playing at that level have done a lot of marketing and a lot of, real getting their hands dirty to get to that level.
I've been doing Ace shows for 9 years.
Yep.
So you obviously, Chris, have found a nice little niche within this space. So what were some of the signals that you saw early on that helped you kind of find your lane, find your niche, and figure out how you were going to make your mark, so to speak?
Nice. Well, first of all, I think one of mine is persistence. You've got to be persistent. And
well, that's a common one, isn't it? We
and a lot of people
who have made it
are not persistent. What they do is they try and play around for a couple of years, and they don't get the results that they want, and then they just pretty much I'm no in, this isn't going to work. But the persistence is the big piece of this. And also what a big piece of this are the awards, the credentials. Because again, these big vendors check on every one of those. The awards, the credentials, all that. I mean, that goes behind the brand. So again, persistence and the credential, the American Royal wins have got me there. So what a lot of the guys are fighting now is they don't have the credentials. So whereas I am focusing on marketing, being out doing classes, being out doing events, they're out running doing what? Competitions.
Yep.
So whereas I'm out focusing on selling, they're out focusing on competing.
So I feel like the idea of credentials and authority is one of those things that maybe shifts generationally. And, I'm interested to get your take on this. Do you think a 38-year-old cares one bit whether you won the Royal versus whether you have 100,000 followers on TikTok?
Oh, great comment. Yeah. Okay. So when it comes down to that, the person who's really going to want to be good is going to go with credentials. Mm-hmm. That's why you see every one of these other bottles around there. We call them the 10 for 10s or the 2 for 10s. That's grocery store. Every one of them have award winning. They don't say what they won, but they're award winning. It's that credential that will pull you in. Okay. So you bring up a really good point, and that's sort of as we moved into the social media, as we started to move there, a lot of these guys who didn't have the credentials, the first thing they do is they go out and buy Instagram followers.
Yeah.
And so when they go to present, they're presenting saying, well, I don't have any Instagram followers, but, or I don't have any credentials, but you can look at my Instagram followers and I've got 200,000 Instagram followers. Of course, none of them are following me for barbecue, but they're followers.
Mm-hmm.
Very common thing back 5, 6, 7 years ago, because they were trying to swing that following over to the, well, look at all my followers, look at all my YouTube guys, look at all this, you know. But when it comes down to it, again, what is that customer going to like? You may have 1, 2 sales based off those, but they're going to come back to the quality.
Yeah.
And that's what I've seen.
And even today, you know, Chris, I run the social media for Smoke Freaks and a few other brands, and it's just shocking to me that every day practically there's a direct message about, you know, I can get you followers, X many followers for $25.
Playing that game.
You know, still playing that game.
Still playing that game. And as soon as you do a post, you know, you've got 500 likes. As soon as you do it. And you know, I had a buddy who did that, and he was telling me all about it. He says, yeah, I mean, you know, I have all these likes, but the problem is this one sells perfume and this one sells deodorant, and none of them are related to barbecue.
Yeah.
But I think some of the people have really sort of wised up about that now. So again, I'm not a big YouTube guy because my mom says I have a face for radio. So it's probably a good thing.
My mom says that too about me, not you.
Well, she said about me, yeah. So that's sort of my feeling on that. So when you're looking at a marketing strategy, you sort of have to have a hybrid. So, you know, you saw with doing those classes how excited the people were when they could touch it and feel it and smell it. I mean, and I've seen that over the last 20 some years or 500 some classes I've done. I have that following from a lot of those classes, and it's all about that. It's all about, you know, that's that personal experience. When they go into a Lowe's hardware and they say, oh, 3 Little Pigs, they'll buy all my stuff up.
That's
that
your
some guy in a class, you know, in West Virginia. He basically told me I go around to every Lowe's in West Virginia and buy all your stuff.
Well, I'm pretty sure the reason I know about Goodwin Smokers and the reason I know about 3 Little Pigs products is because of a guy who's a friend of ours who took a class with you once.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, I think you made him an enthusiast for your brand. And ever since then, he's probably sold 10 smokers and hundreds of bottles of rub just by talking about it and demonstrating it.
Mm-hmm.
Correct. Mm-hmm. And you know, I probably have 200 guys like that.
Yeah. So I can really see how the class and the teaching and the sharing of your knowledge just builds a fan base around your brand. And
it does. Again, is it more of a guerrilla marketing strategy? Is it a pain in the butt? You know, hell, I could whip out a YouTube video every day if I wanted to. But the problem with that YouTube video, you can't smell it. You can't touch it. People are only going to watch it for about 1.5 minutes. And now the market is so oversaturated with barbecue-related stuff that, again, how can you be separated?
Yeah. So let's jump into a little bit about your product lineup. I mean, I would say maybe this isn't surprising being 3 Little Pigs. You've got a lineup that's not too big, not too small. It's kind of just right. So how do you go about deciding what's going to go out on the shelves? And, you know, you've got maybe 6 different rubs at this point?
10. I have 10 rubs.
10 rubs now. Yeah, that's right. You got a few new ones out.
4 new ones.
How do you decide?
Well, great point. Well, first of all, I've got to make sure everything's scaling and everything's selling right. There's a lot of brands out there that sling so many rubs. I mean, I've seen one brand with 34 to 40 rubs that, I mean, you have so many rubs, you have so many injections. I mean, it's hard to manage it, let alone try to get it on everybody's shelf. because you may get it on a shelf for a little bit, but what's going to happen if it doesn't sell through or people walk by? Guess what? They're going to scale it down to what sells good. That's what retailers do.
Mhm.
So you got to sell. Got to be able to sell it. You may be on the shelf for a year or two, but after that, after it doesn't walk out, they're going to basically take your brand and scale them down to the ones that do sell. So what I've done is on my brands, I worked with my marketing people at the old Good One place, and I said, what is going to sell? And now this was pre-Google days and so what we found out really sells well is regionality. Kansas City, Texas, Memphis. That's what sells well. Somebody's going to walk up there. They're going to say Kansas City. What else sells well? Put on the label championship. People like that. That's why we did some trials with it. What do you like? They like the regionality. And so that's where, when we initially brought out our first brand, we paid attention to regionality. Because what do people see Kansas City as? A barbecue place.
Yeah.
It's a cow town, no doubt.
It's a cow town. And it is.
I got to make just a little sidebar here.
I do too.
I spent a couple years living in Europe, and barbecue is starting to become interesting over there, in Switzerland in particular. There were some Weber dealers, big green egg dealers, and there's a crap load of money over there. So people are getting interested in American barbecue, but the products by and large that you would buy on the store, they were just getting it so wrong. I mean, you can't really sell an American rub on a Swiss grocery store shelf. That's very unlikely to happen. Everything that's on that grocery store was produced probably within 30 kilometers of where that store is. And that's just how they protect, their industries, their farmers, their producers. But man, do they get the regionality wrong. I'd pick up a bottle of spices and I can look at the ingredients and know, okay, I can use this. But there'll be a picture of like Arches National Park on the bottle, and
nice.
It's a barbecue rub.
Yeah,
I'm like, what does that have to do with anything?
Yeah.
But hey, to a Swiss person, maybe that's the West and barbecue and cowboys, and I don't know.
Yeah,
that's funny.
Well, Brian, do you remember over COVID, which was the origin of our flavor guide? A lot of our testing and the creation of it, and starting to work with Jeff closely. Brian and I were doing, like everybody, we were at home, we were cooking a lot. And there was a day, Brian, do you remember this? I was doing my ribs and you were doing your ribs. And I was kind of getting into TikTok a little bit more. And I remember filming something and launching it on TikTok. And it was, well, Mr. Freak picked whatever you picked for your ribs. I don't remember. And I remember that day I picked your Kansas City Championship rub. And as I'm looking at the camera with my ribs, I said, my ribs have, 3 Little Pigs Kansas City Championships. Why? Because I want my ribs to be a winner. The flavors, obviously, I knew as from our flavor guide testing were great, but you talked about regionality and you talked about winning.
Yes.
Kansas City Championship rub. I mean,
and
let's be aware.
I think it's a
labels,
really
simple label and good color call outs.
Yeah.
I think it really is a solid point, though. I mean, I know at this point you can get great barbecue all over the country at this point, and I've met barbecue chefs who will beat my butt from all over New York, maybe anywhere. But when you ask me what are the 3 great barbecue places in the United States, it's going to be Kansas City, it's going to be Memphis, and somewhere in the hill country of Texas on the side of the road.
Yeah,
That's
right.
where you get the good stuff.
100% with you. 100%. And that's, again, what we could throw North Carolina in there. We could throw some of the South in there too. Total different world than what we're used to. It is a different
world, man. That Southern Alabama barbecue, that's a whole new thing to me.
Yeah. I've done quite a few classes in North Carolina. And of course, they all want to do pork. And until I throw in there a tri-tip or I throw in a beef fillet, and it's like, ooh, what's this? Oh, this is really good. Yeah,
this is what we eat in Kansas City, y'all.
This is what we eat in Kansas City. That's why we're so big.
So your line kind of switched gears on that, and you went away from those and one of them that sticks out of my mind is the touch of cherry, which is a really big seller for us. Talk a little bit about that shift.
Oh, well, touch of cherry was my mom's rub. So my mom and dad, my mom created touch of cherry, dad championship, my dad Texas beef, I did the all-purpose, and I did the Kansas City sweet. So the touch of cherry, we're like, oh, nobody's gonna want this. It's a ladies' round. Oh, this is not barbecue. And guess which is the best seller?
I can barely keep it on the
I'm not
shelf.
surprised at all. I can tell anyone who's listening that rub is a winner.
Yeah, that is exactly where that comes from. It came from my mom, and touch of cherry. It originally was cherry rub. But then I think my little sister Allison said something about you need to call it touch of cherry. And said that's unique because everybody else who knocks it off calls it cherry.
Yeah, and I think it's accurate. It is a touch of cherry. I don't get Jolly Rancher cherry flavor from this rub at all.
Yeah,
just
exactly.
this weekend at our rib camp, all of our campers got to pick different flavor rubs as part of their flavor profile that Mr. Freak was teaching them. And Brian did his recipe and I did my recipe, and my recipe incorporated touch of cherry. And I didn't tell anybody what I was picking because it was about what the students were picking and this and that. But they tasted Brian's ribs, they tasted my ribs, and then they tasted all of each other's ribs. And we had a conversation about, well, what did you use? I said, I used Three Little Pigs touch of cherry for my flavor. And we had that conversation about it wasn't overly cherry. It was fruity and there was some cherry, but it wasn't like slam you in the head cherry, touch of cherry.
And the guys who have knocked it off, they've hit it with heavy cherry. So also I know a lot of the guys in Texas use the touch of cherry for their ribs because they tell me. And these guys are the winners down there in Texas. And I won't say who they are, but both of them that I work with in my group use touch of cherry.
Well, I'll just say guys in Indiana use it too from time to time. And
but that's where the touch of cherry comes from. It came from my mom, and we always made fun of it, always. And so as you're figuring out this, the rubs and sauces are my parents' legacy. So
have you ever discontinued a product that you brought to market?
Absolutely.
Yeah, tell us about that.
Yeah.
We never discontinued any rubs. Rubs are blown away. Rubs are doing fantastic. So sauces, we discontinued a mustard sauce, a Carolina sauce, and a spicy sauce. Okay, they were sort of fill-ins. I was talked into making them. I wouldn't have done them. But again, I focus more on the rub side of it now than the sauce. The sauce, the competition sauce, which does extremely well, and the touch of cherry sauce, which again moved it with the touch of cherry seasoning. We moved that into the sauce, and it does really well too. And we have a sweet sauce, and so those were basically they sold, they did well, but again, they got to that point, and as we know, prices as they go up. As the prices go up, we're going to sell less because we come into that ultra premium area. And so they just didn't sell like I liked. I'd rather focus more back on the rub side of it.
Gotcha.
So I eliminated three sauces and came back with 4 rubs.
Right on. Well, let's
talk about those new 4 rubs.
Let's jump ahead to kind of the
Alan's there.
Let's get into the
out.
zeitgeist and today and what's going on in the barbecue business today. So what would you say are some of the biggest changes or challenges that are underway right now as we speak? What's changing in the world of barbecue?
Well, right now, what we have to do is fight saturation. There's so many people wanting to get into that market right now. There's somebody every week that's coming out with a new rub or a new sauce or something like that. And I'm sure you see it because they send them up to BBQ Pro Shop, don't they? Bring my stuff on, bring my stuff on.
A lot of
How
emails.
do we maintain our basically, let's call it what it is, shelf space.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. How do we maintain our shelf space? And that's what we have to do, is concentrate on doing our shows. We have to concentrate on some social media. We have to make sure that people are taking our stuff off the shelves.
So create demand.
We've got to create our own demand. And a lot of guys don't understand that. They think that you're going to create your own demand by going out and, you know, telling your friends, I've got a new sauce, so you need to go out and buy it. You need to take it to these stores and have all my buddies buy it. It just doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
I mean,
No,
again, I've been
Sells
doing
your
this.
first case though.
Yeah. And a lot of these guys think they're going to get rich by selling it online.
Yeah.
Until they get online and they don't understand, you know, about, you know, how to use Google ads, how to use, you know, sponsored stuff. Well, that costs money.
It does.
Yes. Business costs money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what do you think what's enabling, you know, any Tom, Dick, or Harry to have a barbecue rub, and, you know, all of a sudden they're trying to play in your pool? You know, it seems a lot. Is it easier now than it was 20 years ago?
Oh, no. We got to be on our toes. I mean, again, you know, we got to be, again, it comes back to that persistence, and we got to think out of the box. We got to, you know, I do a lot of, I just sent out over 2,000 sample packs. Some of those sample packs that I know you guys have seen them. I send them over to retailers on the East Coast and Southeast Coast.
What I really meant is it easier to jump into the pool now and say, okay, I got a rub. It's got a UPC. It's got a label. Let's go.
Well, again, it comes back to that strategy that we talk about. You know, do you have a distribution strategy? 99% of them don't. Their distribution strategy is that my buddies are going to sell it for me. And then with that distribution strategy, do you even have a pricing model? A lot of them don't even know how much money they're making on them.
And a promotion model. Right?
Exactly.
A placement model. Right.
And I have to.
I'll tell you that distribution piece is really key too, because one of the most difficult things I find is I'll get a bottle of your rub and people work real hard to sell it to me, and I'll get that case and then I'll reorder it. I don't, you know, it takes weeks. And if it's out of stock and it's not available, people forget about it pretty quickly. So
Absolutely.
That distribution model is a really important part.
And it's hard to set up when you're just getting into it. But so many people are jumping into this market trying to coattail off other people.
That's what I'm really trying to dig into, is what is making it so easy to just jump into it and go, look, I got my bottle. Because I mean, I look around and I see just all kinds of folks. Okay, you compete in whatever sanctioning body. You've won 10 competitions. Okay, you know, 200 fans. And you got a barbecue rub now? There's got to be. I mean, they're not mixing it up at home, are they?
Back early 2000s. So Old World Spices came up with a program, and it came from basically saying, hey, I'm going to put together a bunch of champions together that have done this for a while, and I'm going to go out and I'm going to be the distributor for it to all these big retailers. Okay. So that's where all of our programs started, was with that, with Dave Maples creating this program from Old World Spices. And with that, we're giving that buyer a one-stop shop to buy all these world champions, instead of having to go around and call every one of these guys hoping they have product in. So that's sort of where we're butted from. And there's 3 or 4 of us that have been there for a long time. If you know Mark Lambert and the guys from Boar's Night Out, we've been pretty much in the program from day one.
Yep.
And that's where we come from, and so we work with them as distributors to help be a one-stop shop to where all these places can call, which makes it really easy. Because the biggest complaint I have when I talk to people around where can I get your stuff? Where can I get your stuff? And well, you have to call here, you have to call there, you have to call, oh, they don't have it in stock. It's hard. Well, Bart, you probably have to deal with some of that right now, to where you have to call multiple people to restock and reorder.
I spent a lot of time doing that. Yeah.
And you spend a lot of times doing that, and it's just hard to manage. So
go ahead. I'm sorry.
So that's sort of that distribution model that I work off of is that. But I'm the marketing arm of it. I've got to be the one out there pushing. If it's easy to get on the shelf, but it's hard to get off the shelf. How do I do that? Again, that's that persistence of classes. That's persistence of social media. That's persistence of, talking to the right people.
100%.
Yeah,
So
it sounds like you've identified a multi-pronged approach with multiple touch points, across a lot of those different channels. And I'm guessing with your classes, you have a big referral and recommendation engine of past folks who've joined you.
Absolutely. And a lot of those people are very loyal to me.
Sure.
And, after doing it for 20 years, I mean, you think of it, we've done over 500 classes. And I mean, there could be anywhere between 20,000 people in there that have basically been able to touch it and feel it and smell it. So the important thing is the brand recognition.
Yeah.
So they may not be buying, but then they walk in and see it somewhere and they say, oh, I know him. And then they buy it. So
we've got about 10, 15 minutes left here. Let's jump ahead a little bit to any would-be barbecue entrepreneurs out there tuning in. I know we've thrown a little bit of cold water at the idea that you can just go out and this is all going to fall in your lap because,
Well, one thing I'd like to touch too, you asked the question of how are all these guys being able to jump into the market so quick? A lot of it is because a lot of these manufacturers now are what they call micros. So instead of, micro manufacturers, so they'll come in and they'll do small batch,
like a
micro
pallet.
batch. So whereas we do 10,000 pounds, these guys are doing like 200 pounds, 100 pounds at a time. So again, it's very expensive for them to get in because they're doing micro batching. So a lot of the manufacturers now are bringing these guys in to do that. So that's why you're seeing so many come out so quick.
Gotcha. Well, that sounds like a great deal for the micro manufacturers anyway.
Absolutely. So
a great a customer base that exists, a bunch of guys who have dreams of greatness and they've tasted that success. They won their first barbecue competition and hey, I'm ready to sell a rub.
I mean, it's pretty
and you
cool.
can do it.
And it's price pointed to where, you can see if you're going to be successful or not. You can see if you can figure this out.
You did touch on one of the big disadvantages from them. If you're only making a pallet at a time, you're going to have a hard time being cost competitive with someone who's making 2,000 pounds at a time.
Absolutely right. And that's part of the problem too. Remember, we talked about the pricing model.
Yep. Are you going to sell it for more? Or are you going to take a haircut? What's your plan?
Yeah, exactly. So you got the guy sitting on the shelf for $11.99. And if you're going to make any money, you're going in at $15.99. And oh, by the way, what do you have differentiation between the two?
So let's do a little lightning round for these would-be entrepreneurs. What do you wish you knew when you were starting out that you know now?
Truthfully, I would have came out with 14 rubs and no sauces.
And found what sticks or what?
Oh, I'd make sure it sticks. I've done my research to make sure it sticks. But as far as the sauces go, I think the sauce price point is getting up to where it's almost what we call walk away. It's just like, I can't pay that for sauce now.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Sweet Baby Ray's is pretty good, and it's $2.
Well, and exactly, that's the premise. That's what we have to be careful with is that market has been set with 10 for 10, Sweet Baby Ray's, Masterpiece, whereas it has not been set on the rubs. There's no perception built at that customer end that says, that rub has to be $6.99.
Yeah.
And that's
there's no
really
perception.
Point.
That is interesting. And I think maybe there's just the conditions are there for you to think about seasonings in a different class. They've always been expensive. You go to the store and they want $5, $6, $8 for a jar of whatever. Cinnamon,
Yes, the
garlic,
5 5s and the 6s. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Mhm.
just
And
little tiny spices. And for you to buy all the stuff you need to make a barbecue rub, or that you think you need anyway, I mean, you could spend $30 buying ingredients, or you
yeah.
could just buy a
Oh,
great rub.
easy,
Oh, I know.
easy.
I know. My dad used to. He used to spend a lot more than that.
A
Oh,
lot
sure.
more.
A
Yeah.
Yeah, you
lot more.
start buying cherry powder, it goes up
Yeah.
real quick.
Oh yeah. He spent a ton of money. So again, that's what I wouldn't do. I'd probably focus more on the rubs, the sauces, understanding that the market's been set by the 10 for 10s, even into the specialty markets and hardware markets. People still have a problem paying $8.99, $9.99 for a 20-ounce bottle of sauce.
What's
But
an
they'll buy that
essential?
rub for 14 right beside it.
So you do a fair amount of consulting with folks who are trying to get into this, or trying to save their business or strengthen their brand,
Correct.
whatever it might be. What would you say is like one classic mistake that people make?
They come into this with no plan.
Yeah.
Their plan is basically what their buddies have told them. They have a buddy that does what we do, and he's told them, here's what you need to do. Here's who you need to talk to. They don't have a plan.
Or they think their plan is to launch a barbecue product.
Right.
Well, what's your goal? To launch a barbecue product.
And
Well,
that's pretty much,
I'm going to
What's
launch
your strategy to launch a
No.
barbecue
Barbecue.
product?
yes. So that's, you've got to have a plan. I mean, you've got to have the right connections. You've got to have the right manufacturer. You just got to understand, you've got to have somebody that's going to work with you and shoot you straight, not just try to sell you because they're going to make a bunch of money making your stuff. That manufacturer needs to help you develop your strategy.
Yeah.
And
So
I think also a recognition that to get from that 50-pound minimum into a place where you're at an OWS or something like that, where you got distribution, all that kind of stuff, it's like you got to recognize it's going to cost you money to get on those shelves. It's going to cost you money to sell those products. It's like you can't come out and say, cost me $8 a bottle, so I'm going to sell it to you for $9.50. Wholesaler, and you go, or retailer, you're going to go get them, and it's like if you set your price point at $14.95, chances are not going to sell a lot of bottles. But if you set it at a place where people are going to want to try it, it's going to get out there and get in people's hands.
Absolutely. And a lot of these guys also get caught in the consignment trap.
Mm-hmm.
Familiar, very common in this
I
category.
try not to do it to them.
Especially in the specialty. I see that a lot. Well, I'll tell you what, so give me 5 cases of your sauce and we'll put it on there for consignment. And they get caught in that trap where now I've shipped it to them. It's on consignment. How do I know if it sells? I don't. Am I going to have to go in and check it? 90% of the time, what happens is they'll sell it and you never get any money for it because they tell you it doesn't sell.
Yeah.
I mean,
and if
consignment's just a trap.
even if you do get the money, you're not getting it now. You paid for it, you shipped it, but you're waiting for your money.
Yeah. Oh, and then the other thing is, well, I'll give you your money when I sell everything out. So again, it's the consignment trap that a lot of the new guys get caught in. But that's why the new guys coming into this, their manufacturer should help them with strategy and tactics.
So did you manage, Chris, to dance this whole dance perfectly, or did you make any mistakes along the way that gave you some lumps?
I've been pretty lucky. I'll shoot you straight up.
Yeah, you got 9 world championships. That's it takes a little luck.
The big lump was my father was never here to enjoy it.
Yeah.
He was the one who created it, and he actually passed away before we actually won our first world championship. That was a huge lump.
Yeah.
Walking up to the stage without him to get the world championship was huge.
Yeah.
Another lump was when my mom says, I just can't do this anymore. And we basically said, well, then let's make it a business. And she helped me do that. With that, the new labels, I have some new labels coming out that are legacy labels for my mom and dad on the sauces, just on the 3 sauces. And it's called Puff and Huff. Those were the original labels created by my mom.
Oh,
cool.
So it's my legacy labels to my parents. But that was a huge, I was ready to walk once my dad died. I was ready to go. I mean, I'm just done. I didn't want to do this anymore.
Yeah.
And I don't know what, I just said, I got to do it because this was his legacy. He was never an athlete or anything like that. Me and my sisters were all athletes. My mom was athlete. My mom was all state basketball player in the 40s and 50s. And my dad was never an athlete. And this was sort of his thing.
Yeah.
And he was good at it.
Well, gosh, you have carried that legacy forward through all of those interactions, all those classes, all of your products, all of your new, you mentioned the new labels, the legacy, honoring your mom and your father. And I think that's really amazing. And I thank you for that. And wow.
Well, one thing my mom did tell me was when I told her I was quitting my IT job and going to go work for this guy selling barbecue, you know what she called me?
What?
She goes, "You're a dumbass." She goes, "You're walking away from what?"
Yeah, well, I'm sure a lot of people have lodged that at me as well. I came from kind of a similar background, not quite IT. I was more product manager type, but defining the things that IT would build and then working with them to build it. And it was a really awesome career and very lucrative. And, compared to what I do now, in some ways a lot easier. I sat at a desk all day. But man, I'd never go back to that given what
I wouldn't either.
Now.
Not in a second. Me and my wife get to travel around the United States and around the world teaching barbecue. And my wife's just as good at it as I am anymore. She won't let you know that, but she is.
I love it.
Well, let's move into wrap-up mode. I want to make sure folks listening get to hear about, some of the great products you sell. We've talked a bit about Touch a Cherry. Absolutely a killer rib rub. It also works pretty well on chicken, I'll say. So we can kind of jump ahead to one of your newer ones that I was recently turned on to, a buddy of ours, Steve, this spicy honey and maple rub.
Oh yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about how did that product come to? What was the R&D like to get to that? It's very interesting.
Again, it's great to have a great manufacturer, and Old World was that. Have they had some trial and tribulations the last couple of years? Absolutely. Worked through it. Everything's lining back up. Everything's straightening out. But Jerry Bonner, who I've known for all this time, he's the chief R&D guy. So this all came down to, I used Google search, and my son's a SQL specialist. And what we did is for over a year, we tracked what people were looking for in a barbecue rub. And that's how my new ones were designed, except for the Championship Hot, of course. But that's how the three were designed. We looked into Google search. There's information out there. You just got to figure out how to get to it. And that's what he was good at doing. I told him, here's what I want, query it, and then separate it for me. So what do you think the most looked for barbecue rub for, it would have been 2023 is?
Well, I know the answer because you told me.
Oh, you do know the answer.
I do know the answer, but
anyone out there want to put a comment? We'll see.
Hot honey spicy.
I tell you what, hey Jeff, I'm gonna share a screen here if you can let me, and we'll let them pick from what's in front of them. All right. So
should try. Yeah.
We're gonna show
most picked. Now think of popular.
Right, can you throw most that picked up for you? All right. Is it one of these?
Yes, it is.
All right. Now people can start guessing which one of those is what people were searching for coming out of the pandemic and looking ahead to a brighter future. What did they
Absolutely want? Correct.
Well, tell us, Chris, what did they want?
Lemon pepper.
Lemon pepper. One of the oldest seasoning combinations known to me, anyway.
Lemon pepper, and it's doing extremely well.
And
I was going to ask you what makes your lemon pepper special. Come on, you got to tell us something.
It's the zesty. We actually use more of a zest to it and less pepper, because everybody else has so much pepper in there that you taste all the pepper. So we used a lot more zest. Again, Jerry Bonner. I mean, how can we differentiate?
And it
that's
is
awesome.
wild to
It
me
is.
that you
Mhm.
found that there was an opportunity there without, the intel that you had pulled out. I never would have believed it, because lemon pepper seasoning is something I've been able to buy at the grocery store since I went to grocery stores. So 40 years, you could
I
buy
know, me
lemon
too.
pepper seasoning. And I never
And I
would have guessed we needed another one.
use it in every one of my classes. And I just use
That's
it in
great.
different variants. And
Yeah.
so the next one was pecan rub, which we had for quite a while anyway.
Hmm.
So we went more with a savory pecan, a little more sugar, and it's a little more savory.
Mhm.
But the spicy honey maple was interesting, because the next queries we had were spicy, honey, and maple. See what we did?
I see what you
Added
did
them all
there.
together. And again, another brilliant move by Jerry Bonner on making them work.
And I have to say that rub, as we all know, was one of our picks for the 2024 essential seasonings list at Barbecue Pro Shop. And everything we test is blinded. We don't have any clue what we're testing. And that one really blew Mr. Freak and I away. And Dan, I really, really love that rub. It's a great product.
Salmon will never taste the same.
Yeah.
And one of my favorite ways to use this comes from Steve. I don't know if he got the recipe from you, but we were doing a cooking event together last summer, and he made these pork belly appetizers. He called them pig pops, I think.
Yep.
Yep.
And he put that stuff all over them. And man, I
Yep.
think they disappeared just as fast or faster than the tri-tip we were handing
Yeah.
out.
They vanished. They vanished. Yeah.
So-
Little kids were into them. Everybody was into them. Yeah.
So part of what I'll do is I'll have my pre. So Steve got some of the pre stuff. So he was part of helping us develop,
It's great.
making sure it was okay, making sure that people liked it. So he was part of that crew. And I'll have about 15 of those guys that I work with that will basically say, hey, and they're all skilled, very skilled in the hobby. So we fine tune it. And again, with the lemon pepper, that's what we ran into. We fine tune it with more of a zest. Everybody else has more of a heavy pepper. We wanted more of a zest.
Yeah.
So-
And I can't wait to get my hands on that and try it, because one of the things I've been teaching in barbecue recently is that you need some acid in your cooking, and multiple ways to get it. And I think a lot of people kind of forgot that along the way. If you're using straight up Kansas City sauces, you don't have a whole lot of vinegar in there. Where are you getting that pop from? Well, there's different ways to get it, and I reckon lemon zest is one of them. Do you have any killer combos or sleeper ways to use some of these products of yours that you can share with folks?
Well,
Maybe let us
of
do
course,
a little
on chicken.
Shiggin. I want to do some shiggin.
Well, what I found out works, of course, in chicken, the Memphis. Have you ever tried the Memphis rub?
We've tried them all except I think the lemon
Memphis
pepper
rub
at this point
is one of the main rubs that they use down in Texas for the comp guys. They use that as one of their finishing. And so the Memphis rub is a zesty rub, sort of a powder Worcestershire rub. And everybody thinks it goes on to beef, but man, it works good on chicken and chicken wings.
Huh.
So a lot of people don't know that. Of course, you know what Steve does with pig pops. He uses the spicy honey maple, and he also tops it with a touch of cherry. Championship is is why we call it championship. We've won a category using the championship. Every category: pork, brisket, ribs, chicken. We've won with the championship.
There you
just can't go wrong with it. It's just a great Kansas City rub that you're going to be a hero.
It's a great rub.
And that was my dad's first original design, was that one. And Kansas City sweet, it's not a horribly sweet rub, but it's more of a savory type. And again, it's got a nice blend. And the reason we had our actual rib base was the sweet, Kansas City sweet, the savory. Then we topped it with, you probably guess what, touch of cherry.
That's
so
what I
did.
did.
The sweet on top of the savory.
Mm-hmm.
So again, there's always a method to the madness. Half the time we have to figure out when we're there, but we'll usually figure it out.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I'm just curious if you got any thoughts from a pure cooking perspective on, when and where in your process of putting rubs on do your sweeter things go versus your savory things go versus your saltier things go? Do you think it matters, or do you have a philosophy on that?
Yes, I do.
I
And
figured you might.
so when I teach around the country, here's something that's really, really cool is I'll teach 3 different styles of ribs. I'll teach a Kansas City style. I'll teach a Texas style. I'll teach a Memphis style. So everybody's going to be able to try all the different regions to see which ones they like. And that's a very important thing, because what it is we have associated in our heads, especially when I teach in Texas, that we'll never use sauce. We can't do that, But what I'm finding out is, as we really open their worlds to different kinds of regionalities, the rubs and all that are what's really paying into the regionalities, not the sauces. So will the sauce add to the region? Yes, they will, especially Kansas City. So funny thing, I taught down in Texas, down in Frisco at Dallas, and we had 28 guys in there, and we did exactly what I was talking there. So I did my Texas beef rib on the ribs, which I really like, by the way, on just regular pork ribs. I did the Memphis rub on a couple slabs, and then we did the Kansas City style. Then we wrap them for a little bit and put some sauce on them. So those Texas guys they were Texas snobs too. So 24 of them picked the Kansas City style, and this sauce stuff is really good.
Wow.
But I like the Texas style were probably the best quality ribs.
Right on. Well, Ann, why don't you take us into the wrap-up phase here, and we'll wind this thing down.
Yeah, we have covered so much ground, and thank you, Chris, so much for being our special guest tonight. I just have one parting question, and with all that you've done and all that you have planned to do yet in this amazing barbecue life of yours, what kind of legacy would you say is, what you'd like to leave to this world of barbecue?
Humble and kind.
Well, that is a great legacy to leave behind. And for our listeners tonight and in the future, tell folks where they can find you. All the stuff's for sale at BBQ Pro Shop. Where do they get to know Chris Marks? How do they sign up for your classes? How do they get in the know?
They can get on the Three Little Pig website. It's just basically it's a informational website, non-selling website. I have all the classes listed there. I think I have about another 20 this year. By the way, I am turning 65 here in a little bit, so I'll be going on Medicare. So, getting old, but I'm going to run it as long as I can. Me and my wife love doing what we're doing. We have friends all over the United States, and we're just going to run it as long as we can. And
you have a nice Facebook group as well of enthusiasts, and that's another way that people can learn more about your products and, talk about using them.
Oh yeah. Community. And again, one thing I do want to tell these guys starting in the market is that, you don't have to run out there and hang and be popular and all that kind of stuff. I mean, I see it almost as a big clique out there. There's a lot of cliques, and be your own person, make your own business, because you're going to be much more successful in the end, because you never know in those cliques what those guys are trying to do to you.
Yeah. Authenticity.
So be your own person. Yeah. Be strong. They may talk about you, but you know what? That means you're doing your job.
Haters gonna hate.
Yep.
Wonderful.
All right, everyone. Well, that's a wrap. That's a rib. That's a flavor talk in the books with Mr. Chris Marks. And if you didn't get the hint, we love his stuff and highly encourage you to try some of them.
Absolutely.
And, if you're looking for just one to pick, grab that Three Little Pigs, put it on your ribs, and you're not going to go wrong with that. Jeff, thanks for having us all here tonight. Chris, thanks for
all being here, everybody.
Ms. Freak, thanks for being freaky as always, and we'll see everyone in a month or so for our next edition of Flavor Talk. Have a great night and smoke on.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, everyone.